Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about another witchcraft topic, which is divination. So divination is a really cool part of witchcraft and there are so many types, so I'm going to share with you a couple of my favorites and how I understand them. So let's get started. Sorry, Nim's been really loud this morning, so she's going to join me today. So what is divination? So divination is the practice of seeking or divining information on unknown topics through usually supernatural means, as Wikipedia likes to say. This is typically seen in the media as foretelling the future, but it doesn't have to be limited to that. It can also be about gaining insight into yourself or a topic or a situation and multiple other things similar to that. This is a really important part of witchcraft for things like receiving messages from your guides. But now let's talk about some different types of divination and the tools that you can use for this. So number one is probably the most commonly seen form of divination, and which is tarot cards or oracle cards. So this form of divination involves using a specific deck of cards to answer your questions. This starts the same as most forms of divination that involve a tool, which is the merging of your energy with the tool. This is a really important step because when you're divining anything, you really want to be connected with the tool that you're using so that you can get a clear answer and an accurate one at that. So how do you actually use these cards? So what would happen is you draw a couple of cards that call out to you, that your intuition says, yes, you need to pick this specific card, and you draw them into patterns that you can interpret. A really common one to use is the past, present, future, where you draw 3 cards, each one corresponding to each of these things. So how do you actually interpret the cards and gain messages from them? Now this is a very interesting topic because tarot cards especially have set meanings, or at least set ones that you can find on the internet or in guides. But for some decks, it's not limited to this. So here I have the Modern Seer Tarot. Now, I got this as part of a subscription box, but honestly, I don't use it very often, and let me show you why. So this card deck is very minimalistic. And because of that, I really struggle to draw meanings other than what's plainly depicted on the card. Whereas my favorite tarot deck so far, which is probably the most common one, is the Rider-Waite tarot deck. And there's simply a lot of imagery in there that you can interpret. So what I like to do when I'm using tarot cards is to not only think about the typical meaning of the card, but look at what imagery in the card calls to me and what it says to me. How do I interpret it? And this is really, really helpful for gaining a really detailed insight on whatever question or unknown knowledge that you were seeking. Now, this form of divination is really good for broad questions when you really want to get to the source of something, as it gives you very detailed responses. And although this is perfect for things like the future, it's also good for looking into any issues you might be having. For example, maybe you're feeling very unsure of yourself lately and you want to work out why and how you can move on from that. This is a really good form of divination for this. The next form of divination I want to talk about is one that I absolutely adored as a child. I was so mystified by it. It was just something spectacular and I absolutely loved it for that. And that is runestones. So runestones are stones or items of some sort that have a rune drawn on each one that you can cast or draw to divine insight on a question. They take many forms. There are many different types of languages of runes, and the one most commonly used is the Elder Fuvrak. And I really hope I said that correctly. Each letter has a set of interpretations linked to it, including themes, trees, animals, elements, a whole bunch of things like that. This makes it a very interesting option for specific types of divination. For example, trying to gather information about a deity that you think might be in contact with you so that you can actually work out who it is or what they're like. Now this is especially because You can gain so much knowledge from these because the meaning is not just tied to a theme or a topic, it's also tied to trees and animals, environments and things like that. This type of divination really strikes the whole fantasy genre in me, and I love it for that. And there's also so much history involved in these. It's a really interesting topic, and I'm not going to go into too much detail with it, but definitely check it out if you're interested. Now, these stones don't have to be stones. They can be bones, they can be wood, they can be crystals like this amethyst set. They can be glass if you really want to. My first set was a glass set that I engraved myself. But I find that things like wood and crystals are really good for this because you can really connect with them. Now, as I said, with any tool, you really need to connect with them. And this particular set of runestones I found super problematic when I started out, and I had to cleanse the heck out of them to get them to work for me. So perhaps if you are using runestones or another form of divination and it's just not working for you, try cleansing it. That always seems to help. And this doesn't mean just for a new set. Maybe you're finding your old set is just not quite spelling it out for you properly lately, or it's giving you responses that you can't interpret. Just try cleansing them, or meditating with them and connecting with them further and see if that helps. So the next form of divination I'd like to talk about is scrying. So the most common form of this is a crystal ball. Are you okay? It's a crystal ball. I know, it's a little bit scary to look at, isn't it? It looks a bit weird. I'm sure that would be a bit freaky for a bird. Sorry, Nim. But the most common form is crystal ball scrying. So scrying involves a sort of form of meditation or a trance, where you stare into a blank or reflective surface, and during this trance your subconscious mind projects images onto it that you can interpret. There are many forms of scrying, and because of that it's a really accessible form of divination for closet witches. As I said, the most common that you'll see is crystal ball scrying, but you can also use a black mirror to scry, or you can scry using water. Now, water is definitely one that is accessible for closet witches, and all it involves is a bowl of water or a body of water that you can stare into. It's best to try different options to see what works for you. For example, I scry best with blank or pure surfaces like a glass ball rather than a crystal ball, or something like a black mirror or a black bowl holding water. I find I can't focus properly and get into that state of mind when there's any impurities on the surface. My mind kind of just fixates on them and I can't let go. But this form really allows you to hone into your subconscious mind and let your intuition flow. It is a completely unrestricted form of divination. There is no restriction to any of the images and messages you may receive during it. And as such, it has such a variety of uses. For example, receiving messages from your guides. Now, the next form of divination I'd like to talk about is actually my personal favorite type of divination, and that is divining by using a pendulum. Now, this predominantly involves asking yes or no questions and watching the movement of the pendulum to determine what answer is being given to you. This can also be used for dowsing. You see it a lot in Reiki and anything to do with the chakras. You will see someone usually holding a pendulum over these energy points and interpreting how it spins as how this energy is behaving. It can take some time to find the right pendulum for you and to have it react to your energy strongly. But once it does, it's a really simple and easy way to receive some clarification on a topic. Pendulums can be made from many things. This particular one is my personal pendulum and it's made of clear quartz, but recently I have made a resin pendulum that is made out of rosemary and clear quartz chips. And I found that this one actually reacted really strongly to me. So pendulums are not limited just to crystals. You can also make them out of herbs and other objects. Metal is also something you see pendulums being made out of, and I personally find copper to be a really good one for this. To use a pendulum, you firstly, as always, need to prepare yourself and your space. And once you're ready, suspend the pendulum and ask it to show you a yes and a no. This is how you sort of calibrate the pendulum in a way so that you know how to interpret the messages you're receiving. If you're finding that it's not really giving you an answer, ask it to show you a strong yes and a strong no. Now give it some time as well. It does take a little bit to shift between the two, and you want to make sure it is swinging really strongly before you start to interpret. Now this motion can come in many forms. It can go back and forth, it can go side to side, it can go clockwise, anti-clockwise, and I've even seen a figure 8, which is a really confusing one. And for this particular pendulum and for myself, I usually interpret a back and forth as a yes, a side to side as a no, and a spinning motion as an unsure or uncertain. But this will differ per person and per pendulum as well. And now that you're all set and ready to interpret, all you need to do is ask your question and interpret how the pendulum behaves. As I said, this is a really nice and easy form of divination. It can give you a really quick answer or some clarification on a topic. And now the next one I'd like to talk to you about is also a very accessible one, and that is meditation and dreams. Don't be too quick to dismiss your dreams, they might be trying to tell you something. And my most vivid visions and messages come from some form of dreaming or meditation. It is, again, like scrying, completely unrestricted. It's not restricted by yes and no, or an alphabet, or a deck of cards. It is completely unrestricted. Now, there are many techniques for helping you to improve these forms of divination, but something that has always helped me is actually staying in control. And the way I do this is I've taught myself to wake up from dreams. This way, even if you're not in control, you have a stop button, you have a way out. For me, this involves physically opening my eyes while I'm dreaming, and that always seems to wake me up. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to do, but I can always get there in the end. This allows me to actually dive deeper in the dream without fear of nightmares or something like that, and get a whole lot more out of it, knowing that, you know, if I go a little too far, that's okay. I can actually just wake up. And this makes me so much more comfortable in exploring my dreams and interpreting these messages. So I use dreams primarily for communicating with my guides directly and exploring concepts that I can't in the physical world. But if you're uncomfortable with the idea of intense dreams or lucid dreaming or something like that, meditation is a more controlled form of this. Guided meditations that you can find on YouTube are a really good way to start out, and there are lots online for divination. I actually use meditation to divine my true name, but I also use it for communicating with guides as well, or just receiving a little bit of clarification on how I'm feeling internally about something. But it is a really accessible form of divination, and in general I think meditation is a really amazing practice, and it's worth learning at some stage, especially if you're doing some witchcraft, because it can really help you like just get into the zone and prepare your body and your space for whatever form of witchcraft you're practicing. Now guys, that is all of the forms of divination I'm going to talk about today. There are heaps more, so definitely let me know down in the comments if you think there's any I've missed that you absolutely love, and tell me a bit about them. I'd really love to learn them. One that I don't use too often, but I kinda like, probably because I play a lot of D&D, is using dice for divination. It's a really cool form of divination as well. Now, just a quick note, if you do want to use dice divination, there are some crystal dice available. They are pricey, but if you're using it for witchcraft purposes, it might be a good idea to invest in. For example, I have a set of opalite dice, which I do use for gaming quite a lot, but can be used for divination as well. Now, I've gone too much into detail about that when I said that I wasn't going to do any more divination topics, but let's end it here. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Nim's on my head right now. Hello Nim, what are you doing? Anyway, I hope you really enjoyed the video. I'm trying to get out some more witchcraft videos, but you know, life gets in the way sometimes, and a lot of the other topics are easier for me to make, honestly. Witchcraft takes a bit of research to make sure I'm happy enough to put it on YouTube. But I know you guys really enjoyed these topics, and so I endeavored to make more of them for you. If you have a witchcraft topic that you'd like me to cover, put it down in the comments. I try to read every single one, and your input is really great for me, so thank you so much. So what have we got coming up next in the channel? At the moment, I don't have any more witchcraft plans, so as I said, drop them down in the comments if you have any. But there are a lot of creative endeavors that I've been doing lately, and they will be up in the channel shortly. There are a couple of fish tank makeovers, a couple of model builds, and some artwork as well. There's actually a couple of hints in the background as to what's to come. Let me know if you spot any. So I hope you enjoy those as much as you guys seem to enjoy the witchcraft ones as well. So guys, thank you so much for watching again. You guys are wonderful and I love you all. And of course, I will see you all next Friday. Bye. Say bye, Nim. No, she's quiet today. Funny how quiet she gets as soon as I pull her out of a cage. It's almost like she just wants attention. Bye guys.